Hi everyone, I'm Ludum Taters. You can call me Taters. In this video, we're looking at the two Ghost Riders, Mystic and Cosmic, Johnny Blaze and Frank Castle, Free Blazin' and Bull Blazin'. We'll also be scoping Galactus' three other Heralds, Airwalker, Silver Surfer, and Terrax, CGR's pre-Herald anti-hero, Punisher, and Mephisto, who morphed Johnny into Ghost Rider through a demonic bond. Fun. As the Power Index score database expands, it'll continue to reveal some outliers that need to be realigned, which is good. In this video, I'm adjusting Rogue's Suicide's compatibility score from a 3 to a 2. My original justification for a 3 instead of a 2, she got 1 for her metabolic rate, was that her SP1 life steals more than the damage that it deals. And while true, that's not worth 2 points by itself. With this change, her overall score drops from a 7.34 to a 7.19, a purely cosmetic update as she retains her Tier 7 status. I'm also dropping a point from the DPS scores for both Kamala Khan and Ms. Marvel, from a 7 to a 6. They have no DOT, and while their damage potential certainly warrants a 7, that's a bit high factoring in practicality, as Ms. Marvel needs to hold 3 bars of power and Kamala needs to be able to stack and maintain Furies with very aggressive and somewhat risky play. Ms. Marvel drops to Tier 3, Kamala stays in Tier 4. The easiest way to explain the Ghost Riders is to start with Johnny Blaze. And can we please take a moment of silence to recognize what a subtle creative pun his name is? Thank you. Okay, so Johnny Blaze's dad, a stunt performer, crashes and dies during a motorcycle stunt. The stunt show's owner, nicknamed Crash Simpson, basically adopts Johnny and is eventually diagnosed with terminal cancer. Desperate to not lose a second father, Johnny begins studying the occult and attempts to summon Satan to barter for Crash's life, but instead raises the demon Mephisto. Mephisto cures Crash's cancer in exchange for Johnny's servitude when called upon, but then Crash dies in his own motorcycle accident abruptly after. When the night comes, Johnny transforms into a Ghost Rider through a bond with the demon Zarathos sown by Mephisto. Moving on to Cosmic Ghost Rider. In an alternate reality, Punisher defends Earth alongside other heroes against Thanos and is killed by a falling building and sent straight to hell, where he strikes a deal with Mephisto to revive as a rider in exchange for his soul. But upon revival, Earth is a wasteland with no survivors and Thanos is gone. A very weakened Galactus arrives as a refugee of Thanos' destruction, and Castle volunteers himself to be a herald with which power he seeks to punish Thanos. Galactus agrees, and metal music begins playing across the galaxy, figuratively. And those badass through lines translate in the contest. Let's get into the numbers. The first stat is practical DPS. For my definitions of each stat, reference the description box. I generally spend the lion's share of my evaluation time assessing damage output because it's almost always the most important champ category. But CGR's ridiculous DPS potential has been covered extensively, so instead of a full showcase, here's this. With 5 armor breaks on a non-villain opponent, which convert from judgments at their expiration, his DPS is equivalent to an attack rating of 5650. That's 5,650, which would be the best in the game by a margin of 47%. Villains start a fight armor broken by a value that's worth roughly 25% of CGR's base attack, and with 5 additional armor breaks from judgments, CGR's attack equivalent increases in this case to nearly 6,400, 66% higher than Dr. Doom's. Triggering Cruelty, which occurs on special activation, more than doubles his crit damage, improving its rank among 6 stars from 115th to 3rd. Triggering Precision by dexing or activating an SP2 nets him a 27x crit frequency boost, 7 times higher than Elsa's top rate. His SP2 automatically armor breaks the opponent for a steep 1760 armor rating drop, and charging a heavy activates an aptitude buff, which inflates the potency of following buffs by 50%. So if you were to fight a villain, go through a full judgment cycle, after which said villain would have 6 armor breaks, then combo into medium for a judgment, combo into light for another, parry, then heavy charge into an SP2, the opponent would have a negative 5,163 armor rating, by proxy giving CGR an attack rating equivalent of over 8,100. He'd crit at a 310% chance, boosted by aptitude, and on crits, his expected damage would be 18% higher than his damage from non-crits. That means you get SB2s like this, and basic combos like this. 10 out of 10 for CGR. Ghost Rider alternatively sorely lacks for damage. His standard attack values are all average, and his only attack boosting abilities come from brief judgment effects, a fury and a bleed, whose values are a tad above his attack rating, which can only be triggered once a piece per judgment cycle. So 5 out of 10 for Ghost Rider. Both Rider's health pools and native armor ratings are bottom half, and while CGR has massive block proficiency, ranked 6th in the game just behind Infinity Man, his sustainability ends there. Mystic Rider, however, triggers a lifesteal passive with his heavy if it inflicts a judgment, which heals for over 25% of his attack rating per hit. If its corresponding judgment is the first one triggered, it lasts for just short of 6 seconds. If it's the 6th and final judgment triggered, it lasts for 35 seconds. If you can get in, say, 25 combo hits in that 35-second window, you'll heal for over 20,000 health. 6 out of 10 for CGR, 8 out of 10 for Mystic Ghost Rider. Mystic Ghost Rider's SB2 power drains 18% of max power over 2 seconds if triggered from the first judgment, but retains that power drain rate when its timer is extended through judgment count. If triggered by the 5th judgment, for example, it drains 9% per second over about 8 seconds, up to over 80% total power at max judgment count. He also inflicts damnation with his SP3, which locks opponent power. CGR locks all opponent power for 6 seconds upon the application of his 5th judgment. 2 for Mystic, 1 for Cosmic. Utility-wise, CGR is considerably stronger. Mystic Ghost Rider can Fate Seal with his SP1, which nullifies all opponent buffs, and his SP3's Damnation includes Fate Seal, Heal Block, and Power Lock. But CGR also applies Damnation, and it's easier and faster to access by compiling 5 judgments, as well as armor breaks, including an automatic indefinite one against villains. He initiates an incredibly strong power gain burst on light-ending combos, and has an unblockable SP1. 2 out of 5 for Johnny, 4 out of 5 for Frank. Both champs are fully bleed immune, but because CGR's top-end damage potential is tied to his SP2, and because Mystic Ghost Rider can build 4 judgments without the use of an SP1 or SP2, thus bypassing the recoil damage, CGR's use of non-SP3 special attacks is quote-unquote more necessary to his playstyle. 2 points and 1 point respectively. As for playability, neither are particularly difficult to operate, but there's a lot to remember when playing both, and CGR adds in the extra wrinkle of trying to not use dexterity and ideally timing your heavy charge to reach his pinnacle damage output. 4 points for Firehead, 3 points for Fire Bullhead, which brings their finals to 6.95 for Mystic Ghost Rider, which is tier 7, and 8.13 for Cosmic Ghost Rider, which is tier 8. 1 rider for sustainability, 1 rider for damage, both among the coolest and best-looking characters in Marvel Contest of Champions. Before Silver Surfer was a herald, he was Norrin Radd of Zenla, a technologically advanced utopia. Galactus approached with the intent to feed on the world, and Radd confronted him and offered his loyalty as a herald and world seeker for Galactus if Galactus would spare Zenla. Galactus agreed and imbued Radd with a small fraction of his power, the power cosmic, transforming Radd's body and delivering him a slick space surfboard. Pretty rad origin. Airwalker was previously an exploration vessel captain named Gabriel Lan, obsessed with space and its unknowns, whom Galactus beamed into his presence when Lan's ship passed close by. Galactus, in search of a new herald to replace Silver Surfer, who defected for guilt of Galactus's genocides, offered Lan the power to travel the boundless universe, and Lan bit without hesitation, becoming Airwalker, Galactus's most devout herald, who'd give his life defending Galactus. Terrax, Galactus's 6th herald, was a barbaric dictator named Tyros, already possessing command over stone and keen to ruthless violence. After suffering the inconsistent allegiance of heralds with too much moral clarity over their roles in his devastation, Galactus sought Terrax for his cruelty. But with his augmented power set, Terrax instead fled Galactus to conquer other worlds. So annoying. As for their ability sets, they're all relatively complicated. Explaining everything that makes them what they are in MCOC would require its own video and a content creator patient and interested enough to make it. And yeah, that's not me. Also, they're not worth it. So instead of running through their mechanics, I'll just glide over the relevant numbers and give you their grades. In the description box, I've linked the deep dives for Airwalker and Terrax, and a how to play Surfer video from Community Boy Wonder, fan of this series, and one of my many honorary sons, Metal Sonic Dude. Surfer has poor attack stats, but can stack 2 Furies, each worth half of his attack rating, which together double his attack. He also gets a 50% potency at max sig, which means with 2 Furies, he's tripled his attack. And he triggers an aptitude buff on his SP3, which increases Fury potency by 25%. So with full buildup, his attack rating is 2.1 times higher than Doom's, and that's excluding his armor breaks, which reduce enemy armor by 380 apiece. He has an average health pool, the best natural energy resistance in the game, and produces a massive armor buff valued at 2150, which he can stack twice. 6 in DPS because of how impractical his buildup is relative to the payoff, 6 in sustainability too. Nothing in power control and Suicide's compatibility, 2 in utility for his instant armor breaks on heavies and SP1 activations, and his power gain buff, and 4 in playability because while he requires minimal skill, his buildup needs to be executed in a particular way over an extended period of fight time in order to reach his potential. 5.47 for Surfer, Tier 4, the best of this trio. Airwalker is a noodly beefcake with the most ridiculous buildup requirement in the entire game. He gets all of his slappin' strength from his SP3, which is locked until his 3rd fight in a quest at the earliest. But at least then it's like Corvus. Not! The fact that he and CGR both exist is a mockery to the concept of champion balance. His health is average and he has a negative armor rating and below average block proficiency. He gets a modest regen upon activating an SP3, but that. No power control, no compatibility with suicides, and he's overly complicated. 2 in utility for his armor breaks and unblockable buff when filling a bar of power. 3.91 overall, bonafide trash dweller, Groot's neighbor. Airwalker's the guy across the street who makes direct eye contact while loudly deadlifting shirtless in his garage with the door up. Time to move, I cannot live here anymore. Terrax. What a messy ability set. I mean, look at this. He's not good. 5.08, Tier 3, somehow. What the f***? Here's a PI comparison of the Heralds, listed chronologically by their in-game release. Wonder why they made CGR so good. Frank Castle is your run-of-the-mill retired Marine whose family was murdered by the Mafia and who's now out for insatiable vengeance against all bad guys. And he's a classic early MCOC champ. Good damage, average sustainability, and a unique signature, which at max sig guarantees he'll passively go indestructible for 8 seconds when he'd otherwise be killed. It's pretty cool. But because he's so rudimentary, he doesn't calculate too well in Power Index, which awards him an uninspiring 5.0. Which is, yes, lower than Terrax. Sometimes this series really hurts my feelings a lot too much. Lastly, the very naughty Mephisto. Historically one of Marvel's most powerful characters. He doesn't hit very hard in MCOC, but with a reliable one-off power drain ability, reliable scaling regen and poison immunity, and automatic buff prevention through soul imprisonment, which he can refresh with his SP1s as long as he has souls, he's a really well-rounded, versatile mystic. He scores a 6.17, which is Tier 5, the good tier. Here's the full tier chart with all characters from this episode added. Once again, and always, I sincerely appreciate your support. And, genuinely. With huge gaps between episodes now, you could easily just forget about Power Index altogether. And if you're here, you didn't. So, yeah. The more likes this video accrues, the more likely it is that YouTube will recommend it. That would really help Power Index get in front of more people, so please click the thumbs up for me. Subscribe if you want me to make more of these. Help me get to 7,500 subscribers. I'm about 1,000 away. Lastly, drop a comment. Tell me what you liked or disagreed with. Tell me which champs you want to see indexed. Tell me whatever you want. Just put it in the comment section. For those of you watching from and in the States, happy Thanksgiving. And for everyone, please be safe and responsible this weekend. A double entendre about pandemic safety and cyber weekend spending. Winky face.